The awkward first encounter. Jack had always dreamed of traveling to the stars, exploring alien worlds, and making first contact. He just didn't think his first real cultural exchange would involve being completely naked in front of an alien. It all started when he got accepted into the intergalactic student exchange program. Humans had recently joined the wider galactic community, and universities across the galaxy were eager to invite humans to study their cultures. Jack, a 22-year-old Earth student, was lucky enough to be chosen. His assigned roommate was Lyra, a student from the planet Velaraxia. The Velaraxians were humanoid, but had smooth, shimmering skin that seemed to change colors depending on their emotions. Their eyes were large, glowing, and hypnotic. Jack had only seen pictures of them, but he was excited to meet one in person. On his first day, Jack arrived at his dormitory, a futuristic-looking apartment inside a massive space station. It had everything he could need: an adjustable gravity bed, a food replicator, and even a universal translator built into the walls. Jack unpacked his bags, stretched his arms, and let out a long sigh. Traveling through space had left him exhausted, and all he wanted was a hot shower. Since he assumed Lyra wasn't home yet, he grabbed a towel and stepped into the bathroom. The alien shower system was weird. There were no faucets, just glowing panels. After a few taps, warm mist surrounded him, cleaning his body without using actual water. Okay, not bad, Jack muttered to himself, enjoying the soothing warmth. Once done, he grabbed his towel and stepped out, feeling refreshed. He didn't bother dressing right away. After all, he was alone. Or so he thought. The door slid open. Jack froze. Standing at the doorway was Lyra. Her glowing golden eyes widened as she took in the sight before her. Jack, standing in the middle of the room, completely naked. For a moment, neither of them moved. Jack felt his brain short-circuit. Panic mode activated. Oh, crap, he yelped, scrambling for anything to cover himself. He grabbed a pillow from the nearby couch and held it in front of him like a shield. His face turned bright red. Lyra, however, didn't react the way he expected. Instead of shock or embarrassment, her skin flickered with shades of amusement and curiosity. She tilted her head, blinking slowly. Then, to Jack's horror, she grinned. "Oh," she said, her voice smooth and melodic. "You're different." Jack's heart was pounding. Yeah, well, humans have, different anatomy." Lyra's skin shifted to a deep shade of purple, which Jack was starting to recognize as fascination. She took a step closer. "This is so interesting," she mused. "Your proportions are very unique, and your skin, so smooth. Is that a natural feature or a result of grooming?" Jack's brain completely shut down. He had no idea how to respond to that. It's just how humans are," he stammered. Lyra's eyes sparkled with curiosity. "May I touch?" "What?" Jack nearly choked. Lyra gave him a puzzled look. "Oh, is that not allowed in your culture?" Jack's face somehow turned even redder. "No. Yes. It's very personal. Humans don't just let people touch them when they're like this." Lyra crossed her arms, her expression thoughtful. "Fascinating. Velaraxians do not wear clothing in private spaces. Nudity is a sign of confidence and trust." Jack blinked. "Wait, you guys don't wear clothes at all?" Lyra nodded. "Only in formal settings or extreme weather conditions." She looked at Jack again, her golden eyes shining. "So by your species' standards, are you embarrassed?" "Yes," Jack blurted. Lyra laughed. Her skin flickered with a soft shade of blue, which Jack guessed meant amusement. "You humans are adorable," she said, stepping back. "I apologize if I caused distress. I simply find your species fascinating." Jack sighed, still gripping the pillow for dear life. Just knock next time, okay?" Lyra tilted her head again. "Knock." Jack groaned. Before entering a room. Lyra's eyes widened in realization. Oh, you require verbal permission before someone enters your personal space. Yes, Jack said, exasperated. Lyra gave a polite nod. Understood. I will respect this human custom. Jack sighed in relief. Thank you. Lyra turned to leave but paused at the doorway. By the way, she added with a smirk, if you ever want to embrace Veluraxian culture, I wouldn't mind. Jack nearly dropped the pillow. Lyra. She laughed as the door slid shut behind her. Jack groaned, burying his face in the pillow. This was going to be a long semester. The cultural confusion. Jack spent the rest of the evening replaying the incident in his head, trying to process what had just happened. His alien roommate had walked in on him naked. Instead of apologizing or being embarrassed, she had acted like it was the most normal thing in the world. Worse, she had complimented his body like she was inspecting an exotic pet. Jack groaned and pulled the covers over his head. This is insane, he muttered. This whole place is insane. But the real insanity was just beginning. The morning after, Jack woke up to a strange humming noise. He groggily opened his eyes and nearly jumped out of bed. Lyra was standing right next to him, watching him sleep. Jaya, Jack yelped, flailing back against the wall. Lyra, what the hell? Lyra blinked. Oh, you're awake. Jack stared at her, breathing heavily. Why are you just standing there? Lyra tilted her head. You were making sounds in your sleep. I was curious if you were in distress. Jack rubbed his face, still trying to process this madness. I was snoring. Humans do that. Ah, Lyra nodded. Interesting. Another unique feature of your species. Jack sighed. He was quickly realizing that Lyra had no concept of personal space. All right, listen, he said, sitting up. I know you're used to different customs, but in human culture, it's not normal to just stand over someone while they sleep. Lyra's eyes widened. Really? Yes. Lyra looked thoughtful. But how do you ensure the safety of your pack? Jack blinked. My. What? Lyra gestured vaguely. Veluraxians sleep in close quarters. It is instinct to watch over each other, ensuring no one is in danger while unconscious. Jack frowned. That sounds more like wolves than people. Lyra smiled. Ah, so you understand. Yes, it is a survival trait from our past. Before we became an advanced society, Veluraxians lived in dens, always watching out for each other. Jack sighed. Well, humans don't do that. We have locks and security systems. We don't need to keep an eye on each other all night. Lyra nodded slowly. I see. So you rely on external defenses rather than community awareness. Exactly, Jack said, relieved she was finally understanding. Lyra grinned. That is so primitive. Jack groaned. Oh, come on. Breakfast. And more confusion. Jack decided that food would help clear his mind. He went to the kitchen and found the food replicator, a sleek black device that could create any known dish in the galaxy. He scrolled through the options, looking for something familiar. All right, let's see. Pancakes, eggs, coffee. Perfect. A soft beep followed, and the food materialized in a glowing blue flash. Jack sighed in relief. Finally, something normal. Then he turned around and saw Lyra staring at his plate in horror. Jack frowned. What? Lyra took a step back, her skin flashing bright orange, a color Jack hadn't seen before. Jack, that food. It's... She leaned in and whispered, it's dead. Jack blinked. But yeah, it's eggs and bacon. It's cooked food. Lyra looked visibly shaken. You consume the remains of other life forms. Jack sighed, rubbing his temples. You're a vegetarian, aren't you? Lyra nodded. We consume nutrient-rich plants and synthesize proteins. Eating something that was once alive is barbaric. Jack groaned. Great. So now I'm a primitive carnivore in your eyes too. Lyra hesitated. Not necessarily primitive, just wild. Like a predator. Jack gave her a flat look. I use a fork and knife, Lyra. I'm not hunting my food with my bare hands. Lyra still looked uncomfortable, but she didn't argue. Instead, she took a seat across from Jack, watching as he ate. Jack sighed. Are you going to analyze every bite I take? Lyra smirked. Maybe. Jack shook his head. This was going to be a long semester. A lesson in human modesty. After breakfast, Jack decided it was time to set some ground rules. Okay, Lyra, we need to talk about something important. Lyra looked up. Oh, what is it? Jack cleared his throat. The whole nudity thing. Lyra perked up. Ah, yes, you were very flustered yesterday. I found that adorable. Jack turned red. That's not the point. Lyra smiled. I still do not understand why your people are so embarrassed by it. In Velarexian culture, the body is simply a body. Hiding it makes no sense. Jack rubbed his face. Yeah, well, humans have a thing called modesty. We don't just walk around naked in front of each other. Lyra's eyes flickered with curiosity. But why? Jack sighed, struggling to explain something that had always been obvious to him. Because it's personal, private. It's just how we were raised. Lyra hummed and thought. So it is not about biology, but about social rules. Exactly, Jack said. Lyra leaned forward, resting her chin on her hand. Fascinating. I must admit, I find your embarrassment quite charming. Jack groaned. Great. My awkwardness is entertaining for you. Lyra grinned. Yes, very much. Jack stood up, throwing his hands in the air. I give up. Lyra laughed, her skin flashing blue again. Relax, Jack. I will respect your human modesty. For now. Jack eyed her suspiciously. For now. Lyra smirked. We shall see how long you last before embracing Velaraxian customs. Jack sighed. He had a feeling that by the end of this semester, he was going to need a therapist. The strange invitation. Jack thought he was finally adjusting to life with Lyra. Sure, her constant curiosity about human habits was exhausting, and her lack of personal boundaries was a daily struggle, but at least things had settled into a routine. He could handle the weird food, the glowing walls, and even Lyra's offhand comments about his primitive human body. But then came the invitation, and that's when everything got really weird. An unexpected message. It started with a knock on the door, or rather, the alien equivalent. The door let out a soft chiming sound as it slid open. Jack looked up from his holographic textbook, expecting to see one of the neighbors. Instead, two tall Velraxians in flowing robes stood in the doorway. Their skin shimmered with deep silver tones, and their eyes glowed like molten gold. They looked important, way too important to be visiting a couple of students. Lyra immediately stood, her skin flashing a respectful violet hue. Honored elders, she said, bowing her head. Jack blinked. Elders. He sat up straighter, suddenly feeling underdressed in his worn earth hoodie. One of the elders stepped forward, his gaze settling on Jack. Is this the human you spoke of? Lyra nodded. Yes, this is Jack Hunter of Earth. Jack raised an eyebrow. Since when did Lyra talk about me to important people? The elder's eyes scanned Jack from head to toe, as if sizing him up for something. Jack felt uncomfortably exposed, even though he was fully dressed this time. We have observed him, the elder finally said. He shows. Promise. Jack blinked. Promise? For what? The second elder stepped forward, holding out a glowing orb. It floated above their palm, humming softly with energy. You are invited to the ritual of ascension, the elder announced, as Lyra's chosen companion. Jack's jaw dropped. Wait, what? Lyra smiled, her skin flickering with amusement. It's a great honor, Jack. Few outsiders are ever invited. Jack stared at her. Lyra, I don't even know what this ritual is. What does it involve? Lyra's smile widened. Oh, nothing too complicated. Just a little public demonstration of your confidence. Jack's stomach sank. He had a very bad feeling about this, preparing for the unknown. Despite his protests, Lyra was insistent. You'll be fine, Jack, she said, as she helped him put on a Velaraxian ceremonial robe. It was made of some light, flowing material that shimmered like liquid metal. The only problem, it felt paper-thin, like it could fall apart at any moment. Jack fumbled with the strange fastenings. Why does it feel like I'm wearing a shiny napkin? Lyra laughed. It's traditional. The robe symbolizes your willingness to be vulnerable before the community. Jack groaned. Why does everything with you guys involve being vulnerable? Can't I just, I don't know, give a speech or something? Lyra's eyes gleamed with mischief. Where's the fun in that? Jack sighed, realizing there was no way out of this. Fine. But if I end up on some alien reality show, I'm blaming you. Lyra grinned. Oh, trust me, Jack. By the end of the night, you'll be thanking me. Jack seriously doubted that. The Temple of Light. The ceremony was held in the Temple of Light, a massive structure that seemed to float in midair, suspended by anti-gravity fields. The walls pulsed with soft, ethereal light, casting shimmering reflections across the gathered crowd. Jack felt tiny standing there, surrounded by towering Velaraxians in their elegant robes. They all watched him with curious, glowing eyes, whispering to one another in a language his universal translator struggled to keep up with. Lyra led him to the center of the temple, where a circular platform hovered above the ground. This is where you'll stand, she whispered. Jack swallowed hard. And what exactly do I do? Lyra's smile was maddeningly calm. Just be yourself. Jack gave her a look. That's not very reassuring, Lyra. Before he could ask more questions, the elders stepped forward, their voices amplified by the temple's acoustics. Tonight, we welcome a human to our sacred ritual, one elder announced. He has shown bravery in embracing our ways and will now prove his worth in the rite of confidence. Jack's heart pounded. Rite of confidence. That sounded suspiciously like something that involved. The elder turned to him, gesturing. Remove your robes, Jack of Earth. Jack's eyes widened in horror. What? He blurted, his voice echoing through the temple. Lyra leaned in, whispering, Remember, Jack, nudity is a sign of strength here. They'll respect you more if you do it. Jack stared at her like she'd lost her mind. Are you kidding me? But the crowd was already watching, waiting. The pressure was unbearable. Jack's mind raced. If he refused, he'd insult their culture. But if he went through with it, he took a deep breath. Screw it. With trembling hands, he untied the robe and let it fall to the ground. For a moment, there was silence. Then the temple erupted into cheers and applause. Jack stood there, naked as the day he was born, feeling like he might pass out from embarrassment. But to his surprise, the Velaraxians were smiling, their skin glowing with respectful hues. Lyra leaned over, her eyes shining. See, I told you they'd love it. Jack glared at her. I hate you so much right now. Lyra just laughed. But things took a dark turn. Just as Jack was starting to relax, thinking the worst was over, the temple's lights flickered. A strange, low hum filled the air, growing louder and more menacing by the second. The elders froze, their eyes darting around nervously. The crowd's cheers faded into murmurs of confusion. Suddenly, the temple doors burst open, and a group of armed aliens stormed in. They were taller, more menacing than the Velaraxians, with sharp, jagged armor and glowing red eyes. Their leader pointed directly at Jack. There he is. The alien snarled. The human. He has what we seek. Jack's heart stopped. What? Lyra grabbed his arm, pulling him behind her. Jack, run. But I'm still naked, Jack yelped. Lyra's eyes flashed, better embarrassed than dead. And with that, they sprinted out of the temple, Jack's bare feet slapping against the cold metal floor as the sounds of pursuit echoed behind them. Jack thought dealing with alien customs was hard enough. Now he was running for his life, without clothes, and he had no idea what the hell these aliens wanted from him. But one thing was clear. This was only the beginning. The alien threat. Jack had been through a lot since arriving on Velraxia. He'd been walked in on naked, invited to a bizarre alien ceremony, and somehow ended up standing naked in front of an entire alien crowd. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared him for what came next. Because now Jack was being hunted. And worst of all, he was still completely naked. Running for his life. Naked. The temple echoed with the sounds of chaos. Shouts in languages Jack couldn't understand, the hum of energy weapons charging up, and the heavy footsteps of the alien intruders pursuing him. Jack sprinted down the glowing corridors, his bare feet slapping against the cold, metallic floor. His heart pounded in his chest, every beat a reminder that he was just a regular Earth guy in way over his head. Lyra, he gasped, struggling to keep up with his alien roommate. Can we maybe? I don't know. Stop reneging long enough to explain why I'm suddenly the galaxy's most wanted. Lyra didn't even glance back. Her skin shimmered in fast, nervous patterns that Jack had come to recognize as fear. They're Xerthians, she called over her shoulder. And they think you've stolen something from them. Jack nearly tripped over his own feet. Steetoalian? I don't even know what a Xerthian is. And the only thing I've stolen is the dignity of everyone who had to see me naked back there. Lyra shot him a look, even as they ran. This isn't a joke, Jack. If they catch you, they'll... She didn't get to finish. A blinding red beam shot past them, sizzling against the wall, and leaving a glowing scorch mark. Jack yelped, ducking instinctively. Okay, less talking, more running, he shouted. They turned a sharp corner and darted down a narrow corridor. The temple's elegant design gave way to darker, less polished tunnels that twisted deep beneath the structure. Jack had no idea where they were going, but at this point, anywhere was better than here. Finally, Lyra skidded to a stop in front of a large metal hatch. She slapped her palm against a glowing panel, and the door slid open with a hiss. In here, she urged. Jack didn't need to be told twice. He dove inside, Lyra following close behind. The door sealed shut just as the sound of approaching footsteps echoed down the corridor. For a few moments, there was only the sound of Jack's heavy breathing and the distant hum of alien machinery. Jack leaned against the wall, gasping for air. Okay, what the hell is going on? Lyra turned to him, her glowing eyes serious. Jack, I think you're in more danger than we thought. The hidden threat. Jack blinked, trying to process everything. Lyra, you need to start explaining before my brain explodes. Who are those guys? What do they think I stole? Lyra hesitated, her skin shifting through a series of uneasy colors. The Xerthians are a warrior species. They've been at odds with my people for generations. They believe in strength above all else, and they're known for their obsession with rare and powerful artifacts. Jack frowned. Okay, but what does that have to do with me? I'm just a guy from Earth. The most exciting thing I brought with me is a pack of gum. Lyra bit her lip. Something Jack had learned was a rare Velraxian gesture of deep worry. I'm not sure, she admitted, but during the ceremony, I noticed something strange. Jack's eyes narrowed. Define strange. Because I think we passed strange when I had to strip in front of a crowd. Lyra ignored the comment. When you stood on the ascension platform, there was a reaction. The symbols on the platform began to glow in a pattern I've never seen before. Jack blinked. Wait, are you saying I somehow triggered something? Lyra nodded. The ascension platform is ancient. It was designed to detect individuals with unique potential, people who could channel energy in ways even Velraxians don't fully understand. Jack's mind reeled. Are you saying I'm some kind of chosen one? Lyra gave him a serious look. I'm saying you might have something inside you that the Xerthians want, and if they think you're connected to that power, they won't stop until they get you. Jack sank to the floor, running his hands through his hair. This just keeps getting better and better. Lyra crouched beside him. We need to figure out what's happening, Jack. But first, we need to get out of here. Jack looked down at himself, still completely naked, and groaned. Can we at least find me some clothes first? I'd really prefer not to die in the nude. Lyra smirked, despite the tension. Honestly, Jack, I think the Xerthians would be more intimidated if you stayed like that. Jack shot her a glare. Not helping, Lyra. The escape plan. After a few tense minutes, Lyra accessed a hidden panel in the wall, revealing a map of the temple's underground tunnels. There's a maintenance exit on the far side, she said, tracing a glowing line with her finger. If we can reach it, we'll be able to get outside and find a safe place to regroup. Jack nodded, though his heart was still pounding. All right, let's do this. They moved cautiously through the dark tunnels, every shadow feeling like it could hide another Xerthian ambush. The tension was suffocating. Jack's mind raced with questions. Why him? What did he have that the Xerthians wanted? As they crept through a narrow passage, Jack suddenly felt a sharp jolt in his chest. He staggered, clutching his side. Jack, Lyra whispered, turning back. I don't know, Jack gasped. It feels like something's burning inside me. Lyra's eyes widened as she scanned him. Jack, your skin. It's glowing. Jack looked down in shock. His chest was faintly illuminated, strange symbols appearing beneath his skin, pulsing with an otherworldly light. What the hell is happening to me? He hissed. Before Lyra could respond, a sudden noise echoed from the tunnel behind them. Footsteps. The Xerthians had found them. Go, Lyra shouted, grabbing Jack's arm and pulling him forward. They sprinted down the tunnel, Jack's heart racing not just from fear, but from the strange energy now surging through his body. As they neared the exit, Jack felt something shift inside him. His fear was still there, but something else was growing, something powerful. And for the first time since this nightmare started, Jack wasn't sure if he was more afraid of the Xerthians or of himself. The hidden power. Jack was running for his life, naked on an alien planet. But at this point, that wasn't even the weirdest part. Because now, something inside him was glowing. And it wasn't just a little glow. His chest was pulsing with strange symbols beneath his skin, like some kind of ancient alien tattoo had decided to show up uninvited. Lyra dragged him through the dark tunnels beneath the Temple of Light, her glowing eyes darting nervously behind them. The Xerthians were still close, their heavy footsteps echoing off the metallic walls. But Jack barely noticed anymore. His heart wasn't just pounding from the chase. It was like his whole body was buzzing with some kind of strange electric energy. Every step he took sent a shiver through his veins. Lyra, he gasped, struggling to keep up. What the hell is happening to me? Lyra didn't slow down, but her voice was tense. I don't know, Jack, but whatever it is, the Xerthians want it, and we need to figure out why before they catch us. Jack gritted his teeth, pushing through the growing heat in his chest. This was beyond anything he'd ever experienced. Back on Earth, he was just a regular guy. Now he was apparently the galaxy's most wanted glowstick, a temporary safe haven. After what felt like hours of running, they finally burst out of the tunnels into the dense, glowing forests of Velraxia. The trees stretched high into the sky, their bioluminescent leaves casting eerie shadows across the forest floor. Lyra led Jack to a small, hidden cave nestled between two massive tree roots. Once inside, she finally let go of his arm, breathing heavily. Jack collapsed against the cool stone wall, his chest still glowing faintly. Okay, he panted. We're safe, for now. But seriously, Lyra, what the hell is going on with me? Lyra knelt in front of him, her glowing eyes scanning his body like she was searching for clues. "When you stood on the ascension platform," she murmured, "I think it activated something inside you." Jack frowned. "Activated what? I'm just a guy from Earth. The most alien thing about me is my bad taste in pizza toppings." Lyra didn't laugh. She placed a hand gently over the glowing symbols on his chest, her expression serious. "There's more to humans than we realize," she whispered. "Your species may have latent abilities we never knew about." The ascension platform was designed to detect beings with unique potential, beings who could channel ancient energy. Jack stared at her, his mind spinning. "Are you telling me I'm some kind of alien battery?" Lyra's lips twitched into a small smile. "Maybe. Or maybe you're something even more important." Jack groaned, running his hands through his hair. "Great, just great. I signed up for an exchange program, not a starring role in a sci-fi horror movie." But even as he joked, Jack couldn't ignore the strange thrumming power in his chest. It felt like something was waiting, just beneath the surface, ready to be unleashed. The power within. As they sat in the cave, Lyra pulled out a small glowing device from her pouch. It looked like a mix between a tablet and a crystal, pulsing with soft light. "This is a bioscanner," she explained. "It can analyze energy signatures. Maybe it'll tell us what's happening to you." Jack nodded, too tired to argue. "Fine. Just tell me it won't explode." Lyra chuckled softly. "No promises." Jack gave her a flat look, but he held still as Lyra waved the device over his chest. The scanner beeped and hummed, its lights flickering faster as it analyzed him. Lyra's eyes widened as she read the results. This is incredible," she whispered. Jack's stomach twisted. "Define incredible, Lyra. Is this the good kind of incredible, or the we're all doomed kind?" Lyra's eyes met his, glowing with a mix of excitement and fear. "Jack, you're emitting an energy signature that matches the Elders' prophecies. They spoke of a being who would awaken the heart of Velraxia, a source of limitless power believed to be lost for centuries." Jack blinked. "Okay, hold on. Prophecies, hearts of planets. This is sounding way too much like a bad space opera." Lyra shook her head. "I'm serious, Jack. The Xerthians must believe you're the key to unlocking that power. That's why they're after you." Jack groaned, leaning back against the wall. "Fantastic. I'm a walking, talking energy source. What's next? Do I start shooting lasers from my eyes?" But even as he joked, he could feel the energy building inside him. It wasn't just a weird glow anymore. It felt like something was waiting to be released. The Xerthians' return. Just as Jack was starting to process everything, Lyra's eyes snapped to the cave entrance. "They found us," she whispered. Jack's heart jumped into his throat. "What? How?" "The energy you're emitting," Lyra said grimly. "It's like a beacon. They can track you." Before Jack could respond, a loud explosion rocked the cave, sending dust and debris raining down from the ceiling. "Jack, we have to move," Lyra shouted, grabbing his arm. But Jack wasn't sure he could move. The energy inside him was surging, hotter and stronger than before. His skin felt like it was on fire, and the glowing symbols on his chest were now blazing like molten metal. I can't," he gasped. "It's too much." The cave wall exploded inward, and the Xerthians stormed in, their weapons aimed directly at Jack. "There he is," one of them snarled. "Seize him." But before they could get close, something inside Jack snapped. A blinding pulse of light erupted from his chest, sending shockwaves through the cave. The Xerthians were thrown back like rag dolls, their weapons disintegrating in their hands. Jack stood there, breathing heavily, as the last of the light faded. The cave was silent except for the sound of his own heartbeat. Lyra stared at him, her eyes wide with shock, and something else. "Jack," she whispered, "do you know what you just did?" Jack shook his head, his body still buzzing with the remnants of the power surge. "You didn't just defend yourself," Lyra said slowly. "You tapped into the heart of Velaraxia. You're not just part of this prophecy, Jack. You are the prophecy." Jack's mind spun. He had come to Velaraxia looking for an adventure. But now, he was part of something much bigger and much more dangerous than he had ever imagined. And the real battle was just beginning. The ultimate showdown. Jack Hunter had officially passed the point of no return. What started as a simple intergalactic student exchange program had spiraled into a cosmic nightmare. He wasn't just a human exchange student anymore. He was now a walking energy conduit for an ancient power, chased by Xerthian warriors who wanted him dead or captured. But as much as Jack wanted to curl up and pretend this was all a bad dream, there was no going back. Not after what he'd done in that cave. Because now Jack wasn't just running for his life. He was ready to fight back. A new purpose. After Jack's explosive burst of power in the cave, Lyra had managed to stabilize him with a combination of Velaraxian healing techniques and alien tech. The glowing symbols on his chest had dimmed, but the energy inside him was still very much alive, simmering just beneath the surface like a dormant volcano. They had taken refuge in an ancient Velaraxian outpost, hidden deep within the glowing forests. It was a place long abandoned, its walls covered in ancient glyphs and overgrown with bioluminescent vines. The perfect place to regroup. But Jack wasn't resting. Not anymore. Lyra stood across from him, holding a sleek alien training staff. Again, she commanded, her glowing eyes locked on his. Jack gritted his teeth, focusing on the energy within him. He extended his hand, and a faint blue light flickered along his fingers. With a sharp breath, he thrust his palm forward. A pulse of energy shot out, slamming into a training dummy with enough force to send it flying across the room. Jack let out a shaky breath, his chest heaving. Lyra's lips curled into a proud smile. "You're getting stronger." Jack wiped the sweat from his brow, trying to catch his breath. "Yeah, but I still feel like I'm gonna blow up every time I do that." Lyra chuckled softly. "You're learning to control it. The power isn't just inside you, it's part of you now." Jack nodded, though the weight of it all still felt surreal. Just a few days ago, he was worried about passing exams. Now he was preparing for a battle that could determine the fate of an entire planet. But there was no more time for doubt. The Xerthians were closing in, and Jack knew they wouldn't stop until they had him, or until he stopped them. The Xerthian threat looms. Lyra had managed to intercept a Xerthian transmission using the outpost's ancient tech. The message was clear. They were planning a full-scale assault on Velaraxia. The Xerthians believed Jack was the key to unlocking an ancient weapon hidden within the planet, the heart of Velaraxia. They wanted to harness it, to use its power to dominate the galaxy. And if they couldn't capture Jack alive, they would destroy the entire planet to keep the power from falling into Velaraxian hands. Jack felt a cold chill run down his spine as Lyra played the transmission, the harsh, guttural voice of the Xerthian commander echoing through the outpost. "Bring me the human, dead or alive. Burn Velaraxia to the ground if you must. The power will be ours." Jack clenched his fists, the glowing symbols on his chest flickering in response to his rising anger. "I'm not gonna let that happen," he said quietly. Lyra placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch both comforting and grounding. "We'll stop them. Together." Jack nodded. He wasn't just fighting for himself anymore. He was fighting for Lyra, for Velaraxia, and for the entire galaxy. The final plan. With time running out, Jack and Lyra devised a plan. They would confront the Xerthians head-on before they could launch their assault. Using the outpost's ancient transport system, they would infiltrate the Xerthian mothership, a massive warship hovering just beyond Velaraxia's atmosphere. Jack's goal wasn't just to stop the Xerthians. He needed to destroy the ship's power core, cutting off their ability to wage war. But it wouldn't be easy. The ship was heavily guarded, and the Xerthians were ruthless. "Are you sure you're ready for this?" Lyra asked as they prepared to leave. Jack took a deep breath, feeling the pulse of energy in his veins. "I have to be," he said. "They want me. Let's give them a fight they'll never forget." Infiltrating the mothership. The ancient transport system was a marvel of Velaraxian technology, silent, fast, and undetectable. Within minutes, Jack and Lyra materialized inside the Zerthian mothership, hidden in the shadows of its massive metallic corridors. The air was thick with tension, the hum of alien machinery echoing around them. Jack could feel the power core somewhere deep within the ship, its energy calling to the strange force inside him like a magnetic pull. They moved quickly, dodging patrols and bypassing security systems with Lyra's knowledge of alien tech. But no matter how careful they were, Jack knew it was only a matter of time before they were discovered. And sure enough, just as they neared the power core chamber, the alarm blared. The corridor lit up with flashing red lights, and within seconds, a squad of Zerthian soldiers rounded the corner, their weapons aimed directly at Jack. "There's the human," one of them snarled. Jack didn't hesitate. He thrust his hands forward, and a wave of blue energy erupted from his palms, sending the soldiers flying like ragdolls. Lyra grinned. "Nice shot." Jack smirked, feeling the power surge through him. "Let's finish this." The final confrontation. They burst into the power core chamber, a massive room filled with swirling energy and pulsating machinery. At the center stood the Zerthian commander, a towering figure clad in jagged armor, his eyes glowing with malicious intent. "So," the commander growled, "the human finally shows himself." Jack stepped forward, his chest glowing brighter than ever. "Yeah, well, you've been looking for me, right? Here I am." The commander laughed, a harsh, guttural sound. "You think you can stop us? You're just a primitive creature, playing with powers you don't understand." Jack clenched his fists, feeling the energy building inside him like a tidal wave. "Maybe. But I don't need to understand it to kick your ass." With a roar, the commander charged, his massive blade crackling with dark energy. But Jack was ready. He unleashed a blinding surge of power, meeting the commander head-on. The clash of energy shook the entire chamber, the walls vibrating with the force of their battle. Lyra joined the fight, her staff spinning in a blur as she took down Zerthian soldiers left and right. But Jack's focus was on the commander. Every blow they exchanged sent shockwaves through the ship, their powers colliding in a storm of light and darkness. Finally, with one last desperate surge, Jack tapped into the deepest part of the heart of Velaraxia. He felt the energy flow through him, pure and unstoppable. With a roar, he unleashed a final blast, engulfing the commander in a wave of blinding light. When the light faded, the commander was gone, disintegrated by the sheer force of Jack's power. The ship trembled as the power core destabilized, alarms blaring in every direction. "Jack," Lyra shouted, "we have to go. Now." Jack nodded, his body buzzing with the remnants of the energy. They sprinted through the collapsing corridors, barely making it to the transport system before the mothership exploded in a brilliant burst of light. A new beginning. Back on Velaraxia, the people celebrated their victory. Jack was hailed as a hero, the human who had saved an entire planet. But for Jack, it was more than just a victory. He had discovered a part of himself he never knew existed, a strength that wasn't just about the power inside him, but the courage to stand up and fight for what mattered. As he stood beside Lyra, looking out at the glowing forests of Velaraxia, he realized his journey was far from over. This was just the beginning. The unexpected ending. Jack Hunter had saved Velaraxia. He had fought off an alien invasion, tapped into ancient cosmic power, and destroyed the Zerthian mothership before it could annihilate the planet. But now, as the dust settled and the celebrations died down, Jack was left with an even bigger question. What happens next? The aftermath of a hero. The Temple of Light, The place where this entire wild adventure had started was now filled with glowing banners and colorful symbols of gratitude. Velraxians from across the planet gathered to honor Jack. Their skin shimmered with vibrant hues of respect and admiration. Jack stood awkwardly at the center of it all, feeling like he'd just walked into his own graduation ceremony. Except this time, he was being honored for not just passing exams, but for literally saving a planet. Lyra stood beside him, her eyes gleaming with pride. "They love you," she whispered, nudging him gently. Jack chuckled nervously. "Yeah, well, I did save their planet. Naked." Lyra laughed, her skin flickering with amusement. "Trust me, that only made you more memorable." Jack rolled his eyes but couldn't help smiling. The truth was, he felt different. Not just because of the glowing symbols that still faintly pulsed beneath his skin, but because of what he'd been through. He wasn't the same guy who had landed here, nervous and unsure. He'd faced impossible odds and come out stronger. But now that the fight was over, what was he supposed to do next? An offer he didn't expect. After the ceremony, Jack and Lyra found themselves walking through the glowing forests of Velraxia, the bioluminescent leaves casting soft light on their path. "So," Lyra began, her tone casual but with a hint of something deeper, "now that the Zerthians are gone, what will you do?" Jack sighed, staring up at the twin moons glowing in the sky. "I don't know. I mean, I could go back to Earth, finish my degree, get a job. Pretend this never happened." Lyra glanced at him, her expression unreadable. "Is that what you want?" Jack was quiet for a moment. Was that what he wanted? To go back to Earth, back to his old life, like none of this had happened. But the more he thought about it, the more he realized he didn't want to leave. Not just because of the adventure, or the strange powers inside him, but because of Lyra. Before he could answer, Lyra stopped walking and turned to face him. "There's another option," she said quietly. "You could stay." Jack's heart skipped a beat. "Stay?" Lyra nodded. "The elders believe your connection to the heart of Velraxia makes you more than just a visitor. You're part of this world now. They'd want you to help protect it." Jack's mind raced. Staying on Velraxia meant leaving everything he knew behind. Earth, his family, his old life. But as he looked into Lyra's glowing eyes, he realized that maybe this was where he belonged. "What about you?" he asked softly. "If I stayed, would you be okay with that?" Lyra's skin shimmered with a soft, warm glow. "I'd be more than okay with it." Jack smiled, feeling a warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with his powers. "Then I guess I'm staying." The return of the Zerthians. Just when Jack thought things were finally settling down, Velraxia's skies darkened. Massive Zerthian warships, bigger and more advanced than before, descended from the stars, their weapons aimed directly at the planet. Lyra's face hardened as she stared at the looming threat. "They're back." Jack clenched his fists, feeling the familiar surge of power rising within him. "They don't know when to quit, do they?" he muttered. But this time, Jack wasn't just going to defend Velraxia. This time, he was going to end the Zerthian threat for good. The final battle begins. The Velraxian people gathered around Jack, looking to him not just as a hero, but as their protector. "You ready for this?" Lyra asked, her staff glowing with energy. Jack smirked, the symbols on his chest blazing brighter than ever. "Let's show them what happens when you mess with Velraxia." As the Zerthian ships opened fire, Jack and Lyra launched into the sky, their bodies surrounded by brilliant auras of energy. Jack had come to Velraxia as a student, but now he was its champion. And he wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. He was fighting for his home. The battle raged across the skies, with Jack unleashing waves of power that tore through Zerthian ships like paper. Lyra fought by his side, her movements a blur of speed and precision. But the Zerthians were relentless. For every ship Jack destroyed, more took its place. The sky burned with the intensity of their assault. Just when it seemed like the Zerthians might overwhelm them, Jack felt something shift inside him. The heart of Velaraxia, the ancient power he had bonded with, was responding to the planet's danger. With a final desperate surge, Jack reached deep within himself, drawing on every ounce of energy the heart had to offer. He let out a roar, unleashing a blinding wave of light that spread across the sky, disintegrating the Zerthian fleet in an instant. When the light faded, the sky was clear. The Zerthians were gone. Velaraxia was safe. A new chapter. In the aftermath of the battle, Jack stood at the edge of the Temple of Light, looking out over the glowing forests that now felt more like home than Earth ever had. Lyra approached, her eyes glowing softly. "You did it." Jack smiled, his chest still faintly glowing with the symbols that marked his connection to the planet. "No," he said, turning to her. "We did it." Lyra laughed, her skin flickering with warmth. "So, Earth Boy, what now?" Jack grinned, feeling a sense of peace he hadn't felt in a long time. "Now," he said, taking her hand, "now we see what other trouble we can get into." As the twin moons of Velaraxia rose in the sky, Jack knew his journey was far from over. But whatever came next, he wasn't afraid. Because this time, he wasn't alone.